All right, strap in, everyone, because today we're diving back into the world of Ethan Ralph.
Oh, boy.
You guys remember our last deep dive about him?
Uh-huh.
Well, this time we're looking at someone in his orbit. You might know him as gunt number 2, Matt Vickers.
Ah, Vickers.
Yeah, we'll go through the Kiwi Farms thread about him.
Okay.
Pages 279 and 280 specifically, and let me tell you, it is a wild ride.
Is it?
Just like with Ralph, Vickers can't seem to stay afloat financially.
Yeah, it's really striking how similar their situations are. Both struggling with housing, both making some, shall we say, interesting financial decisions in the past. Makes you wonder if this is just something that comes with the territory, being in that particular corner of the internet.
Right. It's like a pattern or something. So Vickers is facing possible foreclosure on his house. Again, for not paying his mortgage and homeowner association fees.
Oh, wow.
This isn't even his first time facing foreclosure, which, again, sounds a lot like some of the stuff Ethan Ralph has gone through.
It really does. Actually, some users on the forum are even making bets on who's going to end up homeless first.
Oh, gosh.
Kind of a dark way to look at it, I know, but it just shows how competitive this whole online community can be.
It's like a messed up reality show, except it's real life.
Right.
And speaking of reality checks, the thread mentions some of Vickers' spending habits, even when he was already having money trouble. Multiple PlayStations, trips for his streaming friends. Ring a bell.
It does. It seems like neither one of them are very good with money. Maybe they just like instant gratification instead of, thinking about the future.
Yeah, maybe. And speaking of curveballs, there's this whole thing with the domestic violence restraining order.
The DVRO. Yeah, I did not see that one coming, especially with all the talk about his divorce from Ariana maybe being fake, for bankruptcy reasons.
Right. It's a real head scratcher. And get this, the filing asks for a temporary restraining order and a review of Ariana's access to firearms. That's kind of serious.
Yeah, it sounds like things are pretty tense.
The thing is, the court filing doesn't actually say who the violence was directed at. It could be Matt himself or one of his kids. We don't know. But there's court hearings scheduled for December 4th of next year, so we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that.
Oh, sure.
In the meantime, the speculation on Kiwi Farms is out of control. Some users think the DVRO is legitimate, that something really bad happened.
Yeah.
Maybe even connected to his daughter, Faith, leaving home a while back.
That's possible.
Others think it's just a legal tactic to keep the divorce from getting thrown out.
Interesting. It wouldn't be the first time someone in that community has pulled something like that. Like, remember what Nick Ricciata did?
Exactly. And then there are the people focused on the firearms part, wondering if they were involved somehow.
Oh, yeah. With the way the filing's worded, it's definitely a possibility.
It is. And then you have this one user who's imagining Vickers robbing a construction site because he's desperate for cash and then, anxiously waiting for a pawn shop to open.
Oh, my God.
It's dark, but kind of funny.
Right. Yeah, I guess. But it also kind of makes you think about how quickly things can go downhill when you're in that kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we are, a DVRO filing full of unanswered questions, lots of theories floating around, but no real answers. Just goes to show that things online are always changing, and what seems true one day could be completely different the next.
That's true.
We definitely need more info before we can draw any conclusions, but the December 4th hearing should be interesting.
I'm sure it will be.
Before we get into that, though, there's some other stuff in these forum posts that caught my eye.
Like what?
Well, it looks like gunt number 2 is trying to cash in on his infamy, you could say. He's got merch for his podcast now. Merch. It's a choice for sure.
Bold move, considering everything.
Right. And then there's his website.
Okay.
Dedicated entirely to airing out his daughter's dirty laundry.
Wait, a whole website just to talk bad about his daughter?
Yep. Filled with all sorts of, let's just say, unflattering stories and accusations. Not exactly Father of the Year material.
Wow, that's surprising, even for someone like him. It's like he's trying to be just like Ralph, drumming up controversy, even if it means dragging his family through the mud.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. Makes you wonder what's really going on in his head, Is he actually trying to work through some stuff? Or is he just desperate for attention, maybe even trying to make a buck off of all this drama?
That's a good question. And it brings up a bigger issue about the whole online content creation thing. Where's the line between what's real and what's just for show? And are we, the audience, encouraging this kind of behavior by watching and giving them attention?
It's a slippery slope, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we're going to dig into all of it as we keep going with this deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good, because this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up.
It's a real tangled web, isn't it? This whole Vickers situation, it makes you think about what this kind of lifestyle does to a person, you know? All that scrutiny, having to make content all the time, the drama. Seems like a recipe for burnout.
It really does. And the financial stress can't be easy either.
Yeah.
We talked about Vickers and Ralph's money problems, but it makes you wonder, is this even a sustainable way to make a living? This whole online content creation thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like we see the same story play out again and again with these internet personalities. Rise to fame, struggle to stay relevant, then the money problems start. It's risky, and there are so many cautionary tales out there.
And those cautionary tales often involve them trying to stay afloat any way they can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's doing crazier and crazier stuff, getting into shady business deals, or even, like we're seeing with Vickers, using their personal life for clicks and views.
Right. It's a slippery slope, and it's hard to tell where genuine struggle ends and manipulation begins. Are these people actually asking for help or just playing to their audience, you know, using the drama for their own benefit?
It's a tough question. Hard to say for sure. But it's definitely a conversation we need to have, especially with how it affects the viewers.
You're right. This kind of content, it can be really engaging, even addictive. But we got to be careful, right? We got to be aware of the potential for exploitation and manipulation. Are we, the viewers, rewarding bad behavior by giving it attention? Are we part of the problem?
It's a scary thought. And it brings us back to that race to the bottom comment on the forum. It's dark, but it points to this underlying competition and, well, kind of a enjoying other people's misfortune thing that's present in this online community.
Almost like they're rooting for these guys to fail. This morbid fascination with watching them crash and burn.
It's wild, right? And it makes you wonder, is that what's driving this behavior? Are people like Vickers and Ralph just playing to that audience, feeding that need for drama?
It's definitely possible. And if that's the case, it makes you think about the ethics of it all, our role as viewers, I mean.
Yeah.
Are we part of the reason they keep self-destructing?
Heavy stuff. But let's get back to the DVRO and the court date. With all this talk about money problems, personal stuff, and the pressure to make content, could this DVRO be a genuine cry for help, you think?
I mean, it's possible. We know Vickers is under a lot of pressure. Maybe it's a desperate attempt to get back in control, change the story, or even just to get attention and support.
Or maybe it's exactly what those forum users think it is, a calculated legal move. We've seen stuff like that before. Remember Nick Rikita?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a classic tactic. Delay things, shift the blame, get your name in the headlines.
Exactly. So, is this DVRO real or a trick? It's hard to say for sure. But the court date will probably give us more answers.
Definitely. We'll have to see what comes out.
In the meantime, it's pretty fascinating to see how the Kiwi Farms community is analyzing every little thing. Every detail, every rumor, every theory.
It's like a bunch of internet detectives trying to solve a mystery.
Right. And that brings up another interesting point. The power of these online communities. How they shape narratives and influence what people think.
Ah, yes. The echo chamber effect.
Exactly. These communities can be really influential, making certain voices louder, reinforcing biases, and basically creating their own version of reality.
Yeah, it's something to be aware of, especially when we're dealing with something as serious as domestic violence. We have to remember that we're only seeing a small part of the story, usually filtered through people's own agendas and biases.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to approach these situations with a critical eye, to look at things from different perspectives, and to not jump to conclusions.
Totally agree. We shouldn't pick sides, point fingers, or make judgments without having all the facts.
Right. And we got to remember that there are real people involved in all this. Real lives, real consequences.
Well said. It's a reminder that what we do online can have real-world effects. We need to be empathetic, understanding, and committed to truth and fairness.
Speaking of truth and fairness, I think it's time we talked about the big elephant in the room. We've been dancing around it, but we need to address the whole thing with Vickers putting his daughter on blast on his website.
Yeah, that's a move that left a lot of people confused. I mean, a whole website dedicated to trashing your own kid, it's a level of public animosity that's hard to wrap your head around.
I know, right? And it makes you wonder about his motives. Is this actually him trying to deal with some issues, or just a way to stir up controversy and maybe even profit from the attention?
Tough to say for sure. But this kind of behavior isn't exactly new in the world of online personalities, right? We've seen people exploit family drama, personal problems, even tragedies, all for clicks and views.
Yeah, it's disturbing. And it shows the dark side of online fame. The pressure to keep churning out content, the need to stay relevant, the desire for attention and fame. It can push people to do things they wouldn't normally do.
It's a cautionary tale, that's for sure. And it makes us think about the ethics of making and consuming online content. Where do we draw the line? When does being interested in these stories become supporting something harmful?
These are questions we need to think about as we navigate this increasingly complex online world. And as we learn more about this whole BVRO situation, Vickers' motivations, the online community's role, we'll keep coming back to these questions and digging deeper.
We will. Because this is bigger than just one man's problems. It's a reflection of the times we're living in, a snapshot of the digital age with all its good and bad.
Exactly. And it reminds us that the internet isn't just for entertainment. It's a powerful force that's shaping our culture, our relationships, how we see the world.
Well said. And as we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I'm left feeling like we've only just scratched the surface.
Me too. So many questions still unanswered, so much we don't know, but we'll definitely be watching the story closely and talking more about it as things develop.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we hope our listeners will keep the conversation going too. Share your thoughts, your theories, your concerns. Let's talk about these complex issues in a thoughtful and respectful way.
Couldn't agree more. Because ultimately, it's through these conversations, by thinking critically and talking openly, that we can figure out how to navigate the challenges and use the power of this digital age for good.
I like that.
All right, let's move on to the next part of this deep dive. We're going to get into the psychological side of this phenomenon, how social media makes these stories bigger, and the ethical stuff for both the people making the content and us, the ones watching it. Man, it's crazy how the lines between like what's real and what's fake online are getting blurrier and blurrier. Public versus private, too. It's all mixed up.
It really is. And it makes you think, right, about online fame, wanting to be notorious, and how far people will go to stay in the spotlight.
This whole Vickers thing, the DVRO, the money troubles, that website about his daughter, it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion, a cautionary tale, you know?
Totally. It shows just how messed up this online life can be. The pressure to make content all the time, trying to stay relevant, the constant need for attention, it can really mess with you.
And lead to bad choices, as we've seen. But there's another part of this story that I find really interesting, besides all the drama. The online community, what they do.
The audience watching all this go down.
Exactly. The Kiwi Farms users, they're not just sitting there watching. They're part of the story. They analyze everything, come up with theories, and try to make sense of it all.
It's fascinating, right? Like a Greek chorus, commenting on the action, making the drama bigger, sometimes even influencing what happens next.
They're invested, they're passionate, and they have a real impact. Makes you wonder, why are people so drawn to this kind of stuff? What is it about these communities that makes them so engaged?
I think it's a few things. First, there's the human drama element. We're naturally drawn to conflict, seeing people rise and fall. These stories tap into that, our curiosity about other people's lives, especially when those lives are messy and unpredictable.
It's like a reality show with real consequences. Plus, there's the community aspect. These online forums give people a sense of belonging, a place to connect with others who get it, even if what they get is a little out there.
Right. They can let off steam, speculate, analyze, dissect every little thing. It's a form of entertainment, a shared experience that brings people together.
And we can't forget about Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
That feeling of satisfaction you get when someone else messes up, especially if they seem like they have it all.
It's not the best part of human nature, but it's definitely there. And online, in these communities, it can be amplified, become normal, even celebrated.
So you have this mix of human drama, community, and Schadenfreude all happening online. It's a recipe for getting hooked, becoming addicted, getting way too invested, which can be both interesting and a little scary.
It definitely is. And it brings up some ethical questions about making and consuming content online. Where's the line between entertainment and taking advantage of someone? When does our interest in these stories become harmful?
Those are questions we have to think about as we try to make sense of this online world. And as we learn more about the DVRO, Vickers' reasons for doing what he does, the role of the online community, we'll keep coming back to those questions and trying to find answers.
We will, because this is bigger than just one guy's problems. It's a reflection of our times, a look at the digital age with all its ups and downs.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that the internet isn't just a place to have fun. It's a powerful force that shapes our culture, our relationships, how we see the world.
Well put. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I gotta say, I feel a little uneasy. Like we've only just scratched the surface of this whole thing.
Same here. So many unanswered questions, so many loose ends. But one thing's for sure, we'll be watching this story closely, and we'll be back to talk about it more when we know more.
Absolutely. And until then, we hope you all keep thinking about this. Share your thoughts, your theories, what worries you. Let's have a real respectful conversation about all the complicated stuff this case brings up.
Couldn't agree more. Because at the end of the day, it's through these conversations, by thinking critically and talking openly, that we can figure out how to handle the challenges and use the power of this digital age for good.
Well said.
And on that note, that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the weird, often unsettling world of online personalities and their communities. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.